This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. Thank you everyone for coming. So it's been a while since we had the Sunday morning Shiur. Actually, a lot of the viewers have been asking, what happened to the Sunday morning Shiur? All the other Shiurim continued as usual. Somehow the Sunday morning Shiur, after we switched over here, we're just getting started this week. Mir Hashem, we're going to pick a Masechta to learn Keseder, but this morning we're just trying to get people used to the idea of coming Sunday morning, so we're going to start a topic. Mir Hashem, hope to start a Masechta soon. Okay, we begin with the comment of the Torah in Siman Chaf Hey. This sugya that we're going to do is a very self-enclosed sugya. It's a Lomdus topic, trying to iron out the parameters of two principles in Shas and when they apply. So the Torah says like this. This is something everybody knows instinctively. But the Torah writes, after you put on your tzitzis, after you wrap yourself in tzitzis, you should put on tefillin. Okay, everybody knows that. That's what everybody does. You put on your talis, and then you put on your tefillin. By the way, it's good to know, if by whatever reason you accidentally touch your tefillin before your talis, you have to put on your tefillin before your talis, because in ma'avir and ala mitzvahs. That's why you position the tefillin in the back of the bag, so this way you encounter the talis before you encounter the tefillin. Okay, so that's what, but under normal procedure, first you put on the talis and then you put on the tefillin. The shaila is why? What's the reason for that order? So some of the darshanim say that it's interesting, where do we learn out, where did we get this chus of talis and tefillin from? We got it from the comment of Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu said, Im michut v'yad tzroichnal v'im ekach mikol hashalach. In the chus that he said, Im michut, we were zoicha to chut of talis, and in the chus that he said, tzroichnal, we were zoicha to the strap of tefillin, and therefore, since it's written in that order in the Chumash, we first put on the talis, and then we put on the tefillin. But that's not a halachic reason. The Beis Yosef gives two halachic reasons for the precedence of talis before tefillin. Says the Beis Yosef in Siman Chaf Hey. V'achar shenesatif b'tzitzis yaniach tefillin miyad. That's the language of the Torah. Says the Beis Yosef, the language of the Torah is mashma mitoch divrei Rabbeinu nira shebetchila mesatif b'tzitzis v'achar kach maniach tefillin. From the words of the Beis Yosef, from the words of the Torah, it would appear that first you put on talis and then you put on tefillin. That's pretty clear, right? The Torah is very clear. First you put on talis, then you put on tefillin. V'chein kasav b'nun yud. What does nun yud stand for? V'chein kasav b'nun yud. Nemukei Yosef. Nemukei Yosef also writes, like the Torah, that first you put on tzitzis and then you put on tefillin. B'hilchos tzitzis. Now, why does talis come before tefillin? So listen to this. The mitzvah tzitzis sheshkula keneged kol ha-mitzvahs roi lahakim. That the mitzvah of tzitzis is equal to all 613, and therefore it takes precedence over tefillin. In other words, it says by the mitzvah of tzitzis, uzchartem es kol mitzvahs Hashem. That means that when a person looks at the tzitzis, it reminds him of all 613 mitzvahs, which is a quality that is not present by the tefillin. Tefillin in no way is equal to all 613. By the way, there are many mitzvahs that are shakol keneged 613. Sukkah, Chazal say, Torah, but certainly the mitzvah of tzitzis is shakol keneged 613. Tefillin is not shakol keneged 613. And therefore, talis should take precedence over tefillin, because talis has the meilah that talis is shakol keneged all 613. That's the first reason given by the Beis Yosef in the name of the Nemukei Yosef. Okay. V'oid. Another reason why talis comes before tefillin, shehi tedira yoser. Talis is more frequent. Right? And we know, tadir v'sheino tadir, tadir kan. Now, listen carefully. How is talis more tadir than tefillin? The answer is because talis is noiheges bein b'chayil, bein b'shabbos. Talis is noiheg during the week or Shabbos. V'yamtiv. In other words, basically you put on talis every day of your life. U'tfilin v'tadir v'sheino tadir tadir kaidem. Why? Because tefillin you don't wear on Shabbos, tefillin you don't wear on Yom Tif, and some people don't even wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed. So, talis you wear at 365, tefillin you wear, 300. So therefore, tadir v'sheino tadir tadir kam. So basically, the Beis Yosef gives two reasons why talis has precedence. Number one, that talis is shakal keneged kol mitzvos, and number two, tadir v'sheino tadir tadir kaidem. By the way, just as an aside, the Shagas Aryeh asks on the second reason of the Beis Yosef that what? Talis is more tadir than tefillin? You could make the exact opposite case that tefillin is more tadir than talis. How's that? Well, okay, so say a talis you don't wear until you're married, and tefillin you wear since you bar mitzvah. Other people, by yakis, they wear talis. The day they're born in a talis, and the tefillin they don't. Right? But Shagas Aryeh makes the other argument. He says like this. Let's talk about the nighttime. There's machlokes rishonim, the Rambam and the Rosh. When we say Re'isa Moisai, are you pater from talis at night, or are you pater from talis on a beged laila, not on a beged yard? It's machlokes rishonim between the Rosh and the Rambam. So according to the Shitas rishonim, that at night you're technically chayiv. According to the Shita that at night you're pater from talis. So listen carefully. According to the Shita that you're pater from talis at night, because it says we're Isam Moisai. How about tefillin? Are you chayiv in tefillin at night, or are you pater in tefillin at night? You're absolutely chayiv in tefillin at night. See, nowadays we don't wear tefillin except the bare minimum. But technically speaking, if somebody was able to preserve their body beguf naki, they should wear tefillin all day long. The Vilna Gaon wore tefillin all day long. Nowadays we're very careful because we can't really guard ourselves well to make sure that a person doesn't do something improper in their tefillin. So we only wear tefillin in the morning, only by shacharis. Where I come from, they used to have a seder in halacha after davening. The yeshiva was makbid that you're not allowed to wear your tefillin during the seder, because we're not on the level to guard ourselves so carefully. However, midairaisa, the mitzvah of tefillin applies the whole day and the whole night. Where does it say you don't wear tefillin at night? You say, what? No Jew wears tefillin. That's right. It's a gezerah that you might fall asleep and b'shema yafiach, you might pass gas. But midairaisa, there's a chiyuv to wear tefillin day and night. Talis, though, you're pater at night. So if anything, what's more tadir? Tefillin is more tadir. Tefillin is 24 hours a day. Yeah, 6 days a week, but 24 hours a day. Talis is 7 days a week, but it's only 12 hours a day. So if anything, the Shagas Aryeh asks, talis is less tadir than tefillin is. But bottom line is, this is what the Beis Yosef says, that talis is more tadir than tefillin, and therefore tadir v'sheino tadir kodim. These are the two reasons of the Beis Yosef why talis takes precedence over tefillin. Okay. Now comes the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, right? Yesterday by Shalshulis we mentioned that the Shulchan Aruch is a abridged version of the Beis Yosef, and you would expect at least one of the reasons of the Beis Yosef to appear in the Mechavero. And lo and behold, if you look in the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Chaf Hei, the Shulchan Aruch says like this: Achar shalavash talis mitzuyatz yaniach tefillin. Why? Maalin b'kodesh. After you wear a talis mitzuyatz, you put on tefillin. Why? Because you go up in kedusha. So here the Mechavero Shulchan Aruch is giving a completely new reason why first you put on the talis and then you put on the tefillin. What's the reason of the Mechavero? First you put on talis and then you put on tefillin, because what has more kedusha, talis or tefillin? Tefillin. So therefore you put on talis first. Why? Maalin b'kodesh ve'emoy ridin. Why? But by the way, why does tefillin have more kedusha than talis?
Parsha.
Because you have the Parsha in it. In other words, it's very important to understand. Talis is tashmishe mitzvah. Tefillin is tashmishe kedusha. So, according to the letter of the law, when you're finished wearing the tzitzis, what could you do with it? Me'ikar hadin, technically speaking, you could put it in the garbage. When you finish with a shofar, what could you do with it? You could put it in the garbage. When you finish with a lulav and esrog, technically speaking, what could you do? You could put in the garbage. The only thing is, it's not so nice.
Shmita.
What?
Shmita.
Anytime. Lulav and esrog, it doesn't have kedusha. You're right. For Shemitah, there's another reason why you let it dry out and then you dispose of it properly. But technically speaking, tashmishe mitzvah nizrakin, the Gemara says. The only thing is, it's a little bit of a bizayon, so Some people, they save their lulav for biur chametz. You want to throw out your talis, you double wrap it, you put it in with the clean trash, they say. But technically speaking, tashmishe mitzvah nizrakin. But tefillin is not tashmishe mitzvah, tefillin is tashmishe kedusha. What does tashmishe kedusha means? It's associated with parshas. So therefore the tefillin, the parsha tefillin, you need to bury. The tefillin case is what? Tashmishe kedusha. You need to bury your tefillin case. You want to get a new tefillin case? What do you do with your old tefillin case? It has to be buried. The mantle of a sefer Torah is tashmishe kedusha. So therefore, since tefillin has more kedusha than talis, you put on the talis and then you put on the tefillin. Why? Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin. Okay. So first of all, the big shocker here is the Beis Yosef gave two reasons why talis goes before tefillin. One is talis is shakol keneged kol mitzvos. Number two, tadir. You would expect the Mechaber to give at least one of the two reasons, and he doesn't. He comes up with a completely new reason. What's the completely new reason? Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin. Now, why the Mechaber does not mention any of the two reasons he mentions Beis Yosef, it's hard to know. But what we're going to focus on is the following. And that is, what do you mean Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin? There are two Mishnayos in Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, one in Masechta Hayriyos, one in Masechta Zvachim, that gives us the exact opposite rule. That not Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin, but rather, Kol Hamekudash Mechavero, Koidem Mechavero. Right, you got it? Kol Hamekudash. In other words, when you have a choice, two mitzvahs, one mitzvah is holier than the other, the Mishnah says in Hayriyos, Parak Gimel, Kol hatadir mechaveroi koidem eschaveroi, v'chol hamekudash mechaveroi koidem eschaveroi. That any mitzvah that has more kedusha takes precedence over the other mitzvah. So therefore, says comes the dagol mervava. Who's the dagol mervava? Who's it? Very good, Nadi Yehuda. Gewaldik. Right?
I can read.
You have to be smart also. That's part of being smart. The Dagol Mervava, who's a Noida B'Yehuda, Rabbi Cheskel Landau, right? Rabbi Cheskel Landau wrote Shas Tshuvas Noida B'Yehuda, and he wrote Drashos Ahavas Tzion, and he also wrote footnotes on Shulchan Aruch called Dagol Mervava, and he asked the following question on the Shulchan Aruch. He says, look at number 5. Mashmois Hadvarim. The implication of the Shulchan Aruch, Lefi shehat tefillin yesh bahem kedusha yoser mitzitzis. Tefillin has more kedusha than tzitzis. Lekach makdim hatzitzis. Therefore, you should be makdim tzitzis. Why? Lefi shemalin b'kodesh. Because you go up in kedusha. Right? That's the mashmois of the Shulchan Aruch. That first you put on talis, then you put on tefillin. Malin b'kodesh. Frek the dagam ravav v'hadavar tamua. Shulchan Aruch is a tema. Why? Adarabba. Just the opposite. Mishum kedushasai hayal hakdimai. If tefillin, in fact, is more kadosh than talis, then tefillin should go first because kol hamekudash mechavero koidem eschaveroi. What are you bringing in this rule? You have two things that have kedusha. You should do the more holy one second because of Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin. Nowhere in the entire corpus of Mishnah does it say the rule of Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin. It does say Kol hamekudash mechavero koidem eschaveroi. So just the opposite. You want to say tefillin goes second because it's more kadosh? Just the opposite. Tefillin should go first because it's more kadosh. Says the Dagam Ravav, I have no problems on the Beis Yosef because the Beis Yosef never gave this new answer, this newfangled answer of Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin. The Beis Yosef gave two reasonable answers. Number one, because talis is shakol keneged kol mitzvos, and number two, because of tadir v'sheino tadir kaidem. But it's the Shulchan Aruch who invents this newfangled reason. Well, this newfangled reason, it should be the exact opposite.
That reason is used for like if you sell something, buy something else. Like you're allowed to sell a shul to buy a Torah. So that
what's your first name again?
Shmuel. So
Shmuel is asking.
I mean, I don't know if it applies here, but it's definitely used, that concept.
Yeah. So Shmuel's saying, one second here. What's the Noida B'Yehuda's problem on the Shulchan Aruch? Shulchan Aruch did not invent the klal of Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin. Everybody here, I'm sure, heard of the klal of Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin. For example, in the 4th parak of Masechta Megillah, right? It says if you have what?
Hanukkah.
Okay. Also, not to say also Chanukah. So we have two examples right off the bat, right? The Mishnah says in Megillah that you could sell Rechayva Shalir to buy a Beis HaKnesses. You could sell a Beis HaKnesses to buy an Aron. You could sell an Aron to buy a mantle. You could sell a mantle to buy a Sefer Torah. But you can't sell a Sefer Torah to buy a mantle. You can't sell a mantle to buy an Aron. You can't sell an Aron to buy a shul. So why? Basically, Maalin B'Kodesh V'Ein Moiridin. Or Chanukah, right? Everybody knows when you light the Chanukah menorah, you light 1 the first night, 2 the second night, 3 the third night. Right? We passing like Beis Hillel. What's the reasoning of Beis Hillel? That you have on the sheet of number 6. See, you got the one I didn't think of. I thought of the Chanukah example, right? Like Nasi said, that the reason why we go up when we light is because of Maalin B'Kodesh V'Ein Moiridin. Right, the Gemara in Shabbos, Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, or the beginning of the 4th parak in Masechta Megillah, that when you have money, holy money, you got to go up in kedusha, and what? You don't go down. Well, therefore, the question is, what's the Dag Mervava shepping with the Shulchan Aruch? Shulchan Aruch is a good Jew. He got up in shul, and they asked him, Rabbi, why do you put on talis before tefillin? And he said, because Maalin B'Kodesh V'Ein Moiridin. Maalin B'Kodesh V'Ein Moiridin. So what are you chepping with a Shulchan Aruch? Hey, Shulchan Aruch, what, you made up a new reason? You make up a reason. It's a well-documented principle. Maalin B'Kodesh V'Ein Moiridin. What are you bothering the Shulchan Aruch for? Right? Whenever you have a kasha, if somebody says something, if he's using a well-documented reason, which Maalin B'Kodesh, what do you want from the Shulchan Aruch's life? What did he do wrong? He invoked Maalin B'Kodesh. Maalin B'Kodesh is well known. So comes the Shagas Aryeh. Shagas Aryeh says, no. I have a problem with the Shulchan Aruch.
Maybe it's not considered Kodesh, so it's actually a mitzvah and considered Kodesh, so it's not in the same realm, the same class, so they don't really, two different things.
So you're saying
Kodesh is only within Kedusha things, but once it's
okay, by the way, it's a very good svara.
Yeah,
by the way,
the order. It's about you have one thing. What to do with it.
Okay, very good. So here's what Zemi's saying. The Shagas Aryeh has a very interesting shita. This is a completely different sugya about Sfiras HaOmer and Berachas HaMazon. According to the shita, that Sfiras HaOmer is D'Rabbanan, right? It's Machlokes Rishonim whether Sfiras HaOmer is D'Rabbanan. Let's say you come home Friday night, you didn't count Sfira. You want to know what should you do first, Sfira or Berachas HaMazon or Shema? So I would have said instinctively, Sfira is D'Rabbanan and Shema is D'Oraisa. So D'Oraisas have more Kedusha than D'Rabbanans, right? That's what I would have said. Shagas Aryeh says no. D'Rabbanan compared to D'Oraisa is like discretionary. It's like relative to D'Oraisa, it doesn't have Kedusha. And the rules of Maalin B'Kodesh, or the rules of Hamekudash Mechavero, is only 2 items that have Kedusha. D'Rabbanans, compared to D'Oraisas, are like in a different sphere, in a different stratosphere. So they don't enter, it doesn't enter the fray. These rules are when you have 2 things that are in the boxing ring. Now we want to know which one is stronger, which one should go first. But relatively, D'Rabbanans don't enter the ring with the D'Oraisa. But still, so you want to say talis doesn't enter the rink with the tefillin because talis is not even tashmishe kedusha. So then what would we say? We don't say kol hamekudash mechavero kadam mechavero because it's not even 2 items of kedusha. Then, but maybe you wouldn't say Maalin B'Kodesh Moiridin either. So all these reasons, then all you have is tadir.
Okay. Or the other one.
Or the shakal connected kol mitzvahs. Okay, it's an interesting idea. So now, Shmuley was saying like this, and this is what the Shagas Aryeh says: that he has a particular problem with the Shulchan Aruch. He's maskim. There's a rule in general, Maalin B'Kodesh V'Ein Moiridin, but he has a problem with the way the Shulchan Aruch's application of that principle. So let's get it like this. Says the Shagas Aryeh, I love Maalin B'Kodesh V'Ein Moiridin. I'm the biggest fan in the world, but you have to know when to apply it. You know when you apply it? Go to your Bata Macha, and you have tefillin. You have tefillin shel yad, tefillin shel rosh. I just had to bring my tefillin shel rosh to the Bata Macha because I wasn't used to the shtender yet. So at one time I was shuckling. I gave my shel rosh a little bit of too hard of a shuckle into the. It was still kosher. But just want to make sure, So now I know you position it in the right place. But it's not easy being a rabbi in the beginning. People think it's easy. Everything you say is scrutinized. Everybody's right. Okay, so if you have two tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, so halacha is that which one has more kedusha than the other? Tefillin shel rosh has more kedusha. First of all, tefillin shel rosh has 4 parshios. Tefillin shel rosh has the shin. By the way, most think the shin, you have the shin, it makes Hashem's name. Shin is of Shakai, Daled, and the Yud. Actually, the Beis Yosef says an amazing thing. The shin alone is the Shem of Hashem. How's that? If you take Yud Kei Vav Kei and you atbash the Yud Kei Vav Kei, so Yud gets you the 10th to last letter, and Hey gets you the 5th to last letter, and the Vav gets you the 6th to last letter, and Hey gets you the 5th to last letter. It's Gematria 300 Shin. Shin alone is the name of Hashem. That's why when we say V'yaru Halamei Haaretz Ki Shem Hashem Nikra Alecha V'yaru Mimeka Elu Tefillin Shabarosh. The name of God alone is on the Tefillin Shabarosh. The Shin alone, says Beis Yosef, is the Tefillin, is the Shem Hashem. So the Shagas Aryeh says like this: Halacha is in Gemara Menachos, Daf Lamed Daled Amud Beis, that if you have a tefillah shel yad, you can make it a tefillin shel rosh. If you have a tefillin shel rosh, you cannot make it a tefillin shel yad. Why? Because Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moridin. That rule is azoi, that in one item you have to go up in kedusha. If you have one item, you have a bias, so then that bias has to be elevated. It cannot be downgraded. But in 2 items, if you have a choice of 2 items, you have 2 mitzvahs in front of you. You want to know which mitzvah takes precedence. Then we apply the rule of Kol Hamekudash Mechavero Koidem Es Chavero. So, for example, in the Gemara in Zvachim, if you have 2 karbanos, one of them is Kachei Kadashim, one of them is Kachei Kalim, which one is brought first? Kachei Kadashim. Why? Kol Hamekudash Mechavero Koidem Es Chavero. In other words, if you want to know, basically, what we have here is, in the boxing ring, we have 2 principles that are going head on. Now you know why it's Super Sunday. You have 2 big opponents. You have 2 opponents that are rearing their heads against each other. You know what they are? One is the rule of Masechta Zvachim. Kol Hamekudash Mechavero Koidem Es Chavero. The other is the rule of Masechta Shabbos, rule of Masechta Menachos, of Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moridin. The shaila is, which of these 2 rules wins? So says the Shagas Aryeh, there's no fight. It depends on the matzav. If it's a situation of you have 2 mitzvahs and you want to know which mitzvah goes first, so then you apply the rule of Kol Hamekudash Mechavero Koidem Es Chavero. You got it? You have 2 karbanos. You want to know which carbon to bring first? The Mekudash. But if you have 1 item and you want to know what to do with the item, that item must be elevated. So therefore, tefillin shel yad has to be made shel rosh. Tefillin shel rosh cannot be made shel yad. Or I would add, Chanukah. You have 1 menorah. You want to know how should you be mekayim that 1 mitzvah of menorah? Should you go up in kedusha or should you go down in kedusha? So which rule would you use? Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moridin. It's 1 mitzvah. Says the Shulchan Aruch, in that case, I have beef with the. Says the Shagas Aryeh, I have beef with the Shulchan Aruch. Why? Because the Shulchan Aruch is discussing a massive situation of 2 mitzvahs, talis and tefillin. Which principle do you think you should use? Should you use the principle of Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moridin, like a Chanukah menorah, like a tefillin shel yad, a tefillin shel rosh, or should you use the principle of Kol Hamekudash Mechavero Koidem Es Chavero? Should you use the principle of the Gemara in Zvachim? What would you say?
Gemara Zvachim.
Gemara Zvachim. Right on. Gemara Zvachim. These are 2 mitzvahs. In other words, before we know how to apply, before the Shulchan Aruch has a right to just randomly throw out Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moridin, he has to deal with the stira. The stira is Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moridin, Kol Hamekudash Mechavero. And the way the Shagas Aryeh reconciles those 2 principles is Maalin b'kodesh is for 1 mitzvah, Kol Hamekudash Mechavero is 2 mitzvahs. 2 mitzvahs. Ask the Shagas Aryeh that the Dogel Mervava is asking a Shtarka Kasha, a question that you can't answer. That why in the world is the Shulchan Aruch invoking Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moridin by 2 mitzvahs? Sorry, wrong rule. It's a beautiful principle. It's a beautiful concept. Bad application. Wrong application. You don't apply it by 2 mitzvahs. So again, this is the kasha of the Shagas Aryeh. and the Dagam Mervava, that why is the Shulchan Aruch invoking the principle of Maalin v'Kodesh v'Ein Moiridin?
Well, I definitely hear that the idea of having one mitzvah category and two, Talis and Tefillin seem to be tied together in a way that's different than Stam, two different mitzvahs. I mean, and nowadays at least, we wear them together pretty much exclusively.
Okay.
Would that perhaps create some sort of third category in which they're combined sort of mitzvah because it's happening at the same time?
Okay, so that's
But it's only together because of us. Otherwise, it would be separate because you wouldn't wear talis at night.
right. So at first glance, it would seem that the same way if you have Kachei Kadashim and Kachim Kalm in front of you and you want to know which one you should shecht first, you would think you should shecht the Kachei. You do shecht the Kachei Kadashim first because Kol Hamekudash Mechavero, Kodem Mechavero. You would think, now I have two mitzvahs in front of me, I have talis and tefillin. You would think, first put on the tefillin, and then the talis. So Mordechai is saying, well, it's a little bit different than two karbanos. Because two karbanos, you do one, and then you do the other. And you could do one at a time. The question is, which one goes first? Talis and tefillin, you are performing them, once they're on, they're being done together as one. But the question is, the issue is precedence. The issue is which one should be done first. So why would you not apply the rule of Kol Hamekudash Mechavero Kodem Mechavero?
Unless you could say that Beis Yosef holds that the union of Talis and Tefillin is only out the Gabe Tefillah. You only put them on when you're davening.
Okay.
Once we're saying davening, so then we could say Maalin v'Kodesh Lomdus and Marine.
Why?
Because it's one category.
What's the category? Davening?
Davening.
They used to wear it the whole day.
Yeah, it's only limited to
But
davening now.
you only start it when you're davening. It comes. You don't stop and just put on.
But
something at night.
many people that learn before davening will put on at least their talis beforehand and learn with their talis. No.
Okay, so I want to. We have something here. Let's just polish it up a little bit. The Bir Halacha and Siman Chaf Hey quotes the Vilna Gaon, who says some kind of Kabbalistic idea, which the Bir Halacha takes to be a Lomdus idea. And he says like this: Bir Halacha, Siman Chaf Hey, Sif Aleph, number 8. Al ha'adam kai. It's going on the person. Shetzarach leilech midarga ladarga. The person has to go from one level to the next. Ules alois b'kedusha, and rise up in kedusha. Ki mitchila hurak mechase es atzmai b'kisoy shal mitzvah. At first, he merely covers himself in a covering of a mitzvah. V'yidei ha'tfilin, and by wearing tefillin, hu mekasher asmai, he ties himself b'kasher hayichod b'kedusha, with a knot of unity and sanctity. So let's just say what the words mean first. That the klal of Maalin v'Kodesh Moridin is going on the person. A person has to go up from one level to the next. At first he merely covers himself with a cover of a mitzvah. In other words, talis, you're just covering yourself. But how bound are you to something that you're merely covered in? But tefillin, you're not just covered in it, but you're actually tied to it. Okay, that's so beautiful. Wow. What does that have to do with anything? And then he writes in parentheses, El Yarabba, Gra, V'kivnu bazel letaretz kushus hashagas aryeh v'adagam mervava. This comment is aimed at answering the question on the table, the kasha l'noy deb'hul and kasha hashagas aryeh, and that is, why is the Shulchan Aruch utilizing the rule of Maalin v'Kodesh Moridin, just the opposite? We know Kol Hamekudash Mechavero comes where, and the answer is talis is just the cover, and tefillin is a tie, a knot. Huh? So the Hart Tzvi, the Tzvi Pesach Frank, he speaks on this Bir Halacha, and he says the Bir Halacha says he's trying to answer the question of Shagas Aryeh and Dagam Mervava. But if anything, he's just making it worse. That's the question. The question is, what do you mean the person has to go up from one level to the next? But the rule is, you don't do it that way. The rule is, Kol Hamekudash Mechavero, Kodem Mechavero. That first you do something holier, and then you do something less holier. So what's the Bir Halacha saying? That according to this comment of the Gra, we have an answer to the question of Shagas Aryeh and the Dagel mervava, it's just opposite. He says v'zeh pela. But then says the Hartzvi, upon further analysis, if you read the words of the Bir Halacha carefully, the Bir Halacha is saying, I believe what Mordechai was saying, that talis and tefillin is different than any other two mitzvahs that present themselves in front of you. And how is that? Because there are two vantage points that you could look at the talis and tefillin. At first glance, and this is how, not just at first glance, the Shagas Aryeh and the Dagam Ravava, they look at it like this. That just like you have two animals in front of you, one is Kodesh Kadashim, one is Kachim Kalem. So now you want to know which one to do first. Hamekudash Mechavero, Kaidem Mechavero. Why would talis and tefillin be any different? The tefillin is like Kachim Kadashim, and the talis is like Kachim Kalem. But says the Hartzvi, upon further analysis, it could be looked at differently. Because when you're makriv a carbon, the role of the person is merely they're performing the mitzvah. So which one should they perform first? They should perform Hamekudash Mechavero, the holier one first. Right? If you have two mitzvahs, and we want to know which one should the person perform first, the person should perform the holier one first. But when you put on your talis and tefillin, you're not just performing a mitzvah. The adam becomes part of the chefza shel mitzvah. In other words, the person is not just saying, "Oh, I have to wake up this morning and I have a mitzvah that I have to throw a talis." Well, more like you don't have to throw a talis. You have to be the item on which the talis is wrapped, and then it's not the pshat. You have to do a mitzvah of tefillin. You need to be the chefza on which the tefillin is wrapped. So then, instead of viewing the talis and tefillin as, I have one mitzvah to perform, I have another mitzvah to perform, and now the question is, which one is holier? You're one person. You're one adam. You're one menorah. You're one bias. The question is, in this one adam, then this one adam, we need to go up in Kedusha, Maalin b'kodesh ve'imoridin. You're right. If you view it merely as two dry acts that need to be performed, then of course, says the Hartzvi, explaining the Bir Halacha, then you need to follow the principle of the Mishnah in Horiyos, the Mishnah in Zvachim, that Kol Hamekudash Mechavero, Kaidem Mechavero. But what the Bir Halacha means, Al Ha'adam Kai, what he's trying to say is that here we're dealing with not just the performance of two mitzvahs, we're dealing with the Adam becomes part of the Chetza Shel Mitzvah. In other words, the way we view it, and is a very important perception of the mitzvah, it's not just, I wake up in the morning and I put on talis. I am a chefza of Kedusha because I'm the item that's wearing the talis. In other words, in a way, when do you have more of an aliyah? When you're makriv a carbon or when you wear a talis? So according to this understanding, when you're wearing a talis, you are becoming a chefza shel talis. You're becoming an item of a mitzvah. And when you're wearing tefillin, it's not just you're doing a mitzvah, you're becoming itself. It's like you're a tashmish kedusha now. You're servicing parshas. You are the guf on which the tefillin is worn, so you're elevating your body. So now, says the Hartzvi, explaining the Bir Halacha, we're not going to apply the rule of Zvachim and Horiyos of Kol HaMekudash Mechavero Kaidem Mechavero. We're going to apply the rule of Maalin b'kodesh ve'imoridin. Why? Al ha'adam kai. It's going on the person. In other words, and the person is one person. When it comes to karbanos, nobody would say that first you're elevating your body by being makriv of this carbon. It's just something the person does. He goes to that and he chefs this carbon and he sends it off and he chefs that carbon, it comes up. But when you put on your talis, you're like part of the talis. You can't. There's no mitzvah in the Torah to throw a talis up in the air, and it just happens to be that it can't fall on the ground, so I have to put my body underneath. It's not that. What's pshat tefillin? The mitzvah is not to take a bias and go like that in midair. Just we don't want it to fall down, so you happen to throw your hand in it. The mitzvah is it should be on your guf. It's to elevate your guf. So we could view it as one adam. Since we could view it as one adam, therefore we could then apply the rule of Maalin b'kodesh ve'imoridin. Look at number 9 in the second paragraph. He says, Aval acharei ha'iyun, but upon further analysis, divrei bir halacha tzadku ma'id. The words of the bir halacha are very correct. The davar gadol dibar. and he's speaking greatly. Why? Yesh shnei sugei mitzvahs. There are two categories of mitzvahs. Yesh mitzvah shehi lo nasis al gufa adam. There are some mitzvahs which are not performed on man's body. The mitzvah yirak pula masas. The mitzvah is just the act. And when you have the opportunity to do two acts, each one is an act, one after another, not together. Then we apply the rule of but a mitzvah that's done on your body, that the body wears it, and you need to wear both. Gam yachad. Al ze amru Maalin b'kodesh. Then we apply the rule of Maalin b'kodesh. This is what the Bir Halacha means. V'hainu divrei Bir Halacha shoimer Maalin b'kodesh ala adam koi. In other words, Perush, the mitzvah hanasis al guf ha'adam, a mitzvah that is put on a person's body, shutzarch leskadesh b'shtei mitzvahs elu, that he has to sanctify himself with these two mitzvahs, v'liyas mu'utaf b'shneim, and wear both of them. Then ha'adam sarach leilech midarga ladarga. A person needs to go from one level to the next. First, you cover yourself with a kisoy of a mitzvah, and then you tie yourself with a kesher hayichud. And says the Har Tzvi, this is borur in the kavanah of the Bir Halacha, but the Bir Halacha is very mekatzer. And then he just adds some divrei hisoyros. He says this is a message for a person in life in general, that in life a person always has to make sure he's headed upward. You know, you always have to ask yourself, am I learning more now than last year, than 2 years ago, than 3 years ago? Am I davening better or am I davening worse? If you never ask yourself that question, then the answer is it's not better. The only way to make sure it's better is if you ask yourself, is it better? Is it better? Okay, I want to throw out one more thing and then we'll conclude. Okay? The Beis Ephraim, the Yad Ephraim. There's Shaus HaTshuvas Beis Ephraim, Rabbi Ephraim Zalman Margolius, who was a contemporary of the Chassam Sofer, and he wrote Hagoyis on Shulchan Aruch Yad Ephraim, and he says very similar to what we just said, but not as extreme. It's a little bit nuanced. Listen carefully. In other words, what we just said is we had a stira. The stira was Maalin b'kodesh Maridin. When does it apply? And Kol Hamekudash Mechavero. When does it apply? So basically, the way the Shagas Aryeh established it was by two mitzvahs, Kol Hamekudash Mechavero, and by one mitzvah, Maalin b'kodesh. And the Bir Halacha is saying that talis and tefillin is like one mitzvah. But it's not so pasha that talis and tefillin is like one mitzvah. Not so pasha to look at it from the vantage point of the person, and therefore this person is like one item, and therefore you should go up. Still, it is two different mitzvahs. It's two separate mitzvahs. There's 613 mitzvahs. One is talis, one is tefillin. So he has a nuanced understanding of this. The Gemara in Zvachim asks the following shaila: Tadir and Mekudash, which one goes first? Okay, now we didn't discuss this yet. You have two mitzvahs. One is more Tadir, and one is more Mekudash. So this is basically the case over here. Talis is more Tadir, and Tefillin is more Mekudash. And it's not clear what the answer is. So says the Yad Ephraim like this. Really, you're right. If you have this case, it's two mitzvahs, and really you should use the rule of Kol Hamekudash Mechavero, Koydem Mechavero, and not the rule of Maalin b'kodesh Maridin. But there's something attacking Kol Hamekudash Mechavero, Koydem Mechavero, and that is Tadir. So who wins? Do we say Tadir wins and therefore Talis goes first? Or do you say Kol Hamekudash Mechavero wins and Tefillin goes first? What do you do when you have two opponents on a big day? What do you do? Kol Hamekudash Mechavero or Maalin b'kodesh? Excuse me, Kol Hamekudash or Tadir? Says the Yad Ephraim, comes the Shulchan Aruch, and this is a rule. Whenever you have two big opponents, sometimes it's the small things that count, you know? Sometimes special teams can make a difference, right? So what we have here is, really, what rule should you apply? Maalin b'kodesh, Kol Hamekudash Mechavero, Koydem Mechavero. But on the other hand, maybe you should apply Tadir. So Maalin b'kodesh ve'ein moiridin, what it does is, it says you're right. Kol Hamekudash really is better than Maalin, especially here it's two mitzvahs. but you could say a little bit of a svara that in one person it should be up. That little bit of a svara is enough to weaken kol hamekudash mechavero kodesh chaveroi, so that tadir could kick in and say kol tadir mechavero kodesh chavero. In other words, the Shulchan Aruch, according to Yad Ephraim, doesn't mean that Maalin b'kosh Maria. What do you mean? We don't use Maalin b'kosh. We always use the rule of kol hamekudash mechavero kodesh chavero. But since we have a shtickle svara of the Har Tzvi that on one person maybe you should apply the rule Maalin b'kodesh, we're not going to go so far like the Har Tzvi and say that's enough to establish this as one inyan, like a menorah, like a tefillin shel yad. No, we're not going to go so far, but it's enough to weaken the svara of kol hamekudash mechaveroi to allow tadir to kick in. So Rabbi say these are the bottom line of Shulchan Aruch says talis goes before tefillin because of Maalin b'kodesh. We gave now two reasons to explain that. Right, the Shagas Aryeh asked, "What do you mean? Why don't you use the rule of kol hamekudash mechaveroi?" So either the Bir Halacha says talis and tefillin is going on one adam, and in one person you use the rule of Maalin b'kodesh, or Maalin b'kodesh is enough to weaken kol hamekudash to allow tadir to kick in. Mirz Hashem, we hope to start Masechta Mirz Hashem very soon. Shkoi.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.